Dr. Wells, do you support reclassifying independent contractors as employees against their will?
I support independent contractors for the gig economy being reclassified. Not all independent contractors everywhere are misclassified, certainly not. But absolutely, we know that in the gig economy, companies like Uber, Lyft, Shift Key, Shift Med, Care Rev, a whole host of companies are not treating their workers fairly.
Okay, but let's just return to the question. Do you support reclassifying independent contractors as employees against their will?
For those workers that work in the gig economy, absolutely.
You do? You support reclassifying them against their will?
Well, we don't have evidence to show that it is against their will. We know
We
that
don't?
workers
Okay,
choose,
you have a couple living, breathing independent contractors right here. Ms. Hoffman.
not for the gig economy. She does not work for the gig economy.
Excuse me. Thank you. Dr. Palagashvili's father, right behind you there, they say they prefer being independent contractors, but you think the government should force them into the employ of someone else against their will. You support that?
I believe that Uber drivers, I believe that Shift Key nurses, I believe that a whole host of PAPA, elderly care workers, should be given both the flexibility to pick their own shifts as well as the protections they deserve. We know that those two things are not incompatible.
Okay, but you just told us on the record that you support reclassifying them against their will. So I guess that raises the question, why do you think you know what's best for someone like Ms. Hoffman or Dr. Palagashvili's father who's sitting behind you better than they know what's best for themselves?
We know that the gig economy has a turnover rate of about 6 months because though workers are attracted to the flexibility it offers, it does not deliver. Workers end up leaving this because they choose stability over the promise of flexible scheduling. If workers could have both flexible scheduling and stability and financial earnings, they choose it.
Do you have any response to that, Ms. Sharp, this idea that Dr. Wells believes she knows what's best for an independent contractor like Ms. Hoffman more than she knows what's best for herself?
83% of people who work in the app-based industry would recommend the work to friends and family. To me, that says that this is work that is satisfactory and is something that people want to do. 77% of people in our 10,000 person study, not a 41 person study, say that they prefer being an independent contractor. But more than that, there are particular stories of people who do this because it works for them and their families. I have a story from Maryland. I'm a single father raising my daughter with cerebral palsy completely by myself. These jobs allow me time for my child and help me be financially secure and pay my bills. How can we say that we want to take away that kind of choice and flexibility from people who have looked at the cost benefits themselves and opted into this kind of work?
And not only that, but now that we're trying to pursue policy solutions that will in fact make sure that benefits are available as well for folks who choose to make that choice, suddenly there's opposition to that as well, which kind of goes to show you what was this really about to begin with. But I wanted to touch on another topic because you testified earlier that we need a safe harbor because currently federal law can look at the provision of benefits to independent contractors and use that as a basis to forcibly reclassify them as employees. So just to make sure I understand your testimony correctly, you're saying that employers who choose to extend benefits to independent contractors or states that put programs or incentives in place to do that can effectively be punished and held liable for doing that. Is that right?
Well, potentially. There's a rather ambiguous 6-factor test that isn't limited to just those 6 factors at the federal level. And because of the lack of certainty, there isn't clarity for workers or companies in what it would look like if they were to take pilot programs or experiment with new approaches to benefits.
Sure. So the solution there is to say, okay, if you choose to extend benefits to those who are independent contractors, that's not going to factor into the analysis. That'd be the solution.
Well, sir, I think you rightly pointed out in your opening statement that we are in a new world and we are looking at how to help people who are working in a different way than the traditional way do it. And because of that, we're experimenting with what that could look like, and having more certainty and more ability to do that kind of experimentation and get those lessons learned is really critical in helping support these entrepreneurs.
Great. Thank you very much. And I now recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Scott, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr.